guards in the town itself. So we finally had to wait. The next day we moved out of there and walked, I guess, about 12 miles to another town, and then was taken on train to Nuremberg. And that's where I met my radio man and also a very good friend of mine that I went through the entire training with. And that was one thing that we were very good buddies, and he and I had been together almost, well, in every stage of training all the way through, even assigned to the same group. And he had been shot down in January. I was shot down in February, and at first impression he said, well, you had to follow me here too. And so we spent the rest of our time. April of 1945, they started to move us out of Nuremberg because the troops were getting too close. And that was when an American fighter decided we were German ground troops and dropped 2 bombs. And I was hit in the leg with a bomb fragment and taken back to the hospital in Nuremberg, and then he went on.
Do you know whether there were any prisoners who were killed by this P-47?
Yes, there were 3 killed. 2 were English, 1 was Canadian, and there was 3 of us injured. And so out of the entire group, there was only 6 casualties, you might say. 3 killed, 3 wounded.
How big a group was this?
Approximately 2,200 people. And they were approximately 2,200, and they were stretched out in platoons of about 100 apiece, I think, something like that.
How many guards would they have
in the platoon? They would probably have, with each platoon, there was probably about 4 or 5, and that was when just before the air raid started. It seemed like after the air raid, they were a little shorter on guards for some reason. And it's not exactly known as why, but they seemingly were.
Then you were eventually freed.
Yes, yes. The Ninth Army overrun, I think it was the Ninth Army, overrun Nuremberg, Germany, and they overrun the prison camp.
What sort of prison camp were you in at that time?
That was in the prison hospital at Nuremberg itself, yeah.
Then you first knew you were freed, how?
A tank rolled up to the front gate, and the captain in charge of the compound asked the tank driver, please don't run over the gate, because we were trying to keep out the wrong type of people. And there were quite a few Russians there who were, I don't know exactly how to say it, they were very belligerent. And so he asked them not to run over the gate, and they put guards at the gate so that only Americans and the German medics were allowed in. And so that that's where we stayed until we were trucked out of there by ambulance. And
was this several days before you were trucked out then?
I believe it was the following night, if I'm not too mistaken. The tanks came up. They had surrounded the prison camp, and the tanks came up into the prison camp one morning about, I'd say about 9 o'clock. And if I'm not too mistaken, it was either that evening, that night, or the following evening that they came in and they took us out of there. And we went from there to an air evacuation unit somewhere in Germany, and I'm not exactly sure where that was. But we were all classed as walking wounded at that time. But,
well, this injury that you received from the P-47 bomb drop, how serious an injury was it?
It was a bomb fragment approximately a half-inch square, and it was embedded in the side of my left leg. And they, rather than go in and probe and take a chance on missing everything and cutting an artery, being as it missed most of the arteries and such, they merely packed it there in the prison hospital and then left it. After I was repatriated and brought back to Paris, they operated on it, took it out, removed it and such. And so it's left nothing at all. You know, just two scars.
Now, during this time, did the manner in which the people that were guarding you seemed to change?
Actually, while we were in Nuremberg, quite a few of the German guards were very friendly. and they would ask constantly, "Where is your Patton?" They knew he was coming close, and they figured he was going to be the one that just overran Germany, and they were anxious for it to happen. The captain in charge was of the prison camp was very military, and he was very straightforward and strict. But at the same time, there were a lot of tolerances that probably would never have been tolerated previous to that time.
Did you feel like at any time you were mistreated by your military captors?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. I felt that they did what they could for us. They shared a certain amount of their food with us, which wasn't much. They didn't have much. Being in Nuremberg, we were lucky that that was the first stop along the path of the Red Cross prisoner of war packages. And they came in, and we received the equivalent of a package per week down there, which was enough to sustain us very well. And
you did receive regularly the Red Cross packages?
Yes, yes. Well, that was after we were in Nuremberg itself. Yeah.
Now, at any time were you around where the German civilians were?
I guess the only time that we really had, when we were marched from a train to the prison camps, or when we were moved from one place to the other, occasionally there would be German civilians out there, and they were very threatening. If it hadn't been for the guards, many times, we would have been in trouble. I think the worst experience, I believe, that we had, we were in the railroad station at Frankfurt, and the guard that I had at that time, we had lost him. He and I had moved to Frankfurt together. And he was an older fellow. He was 54 years old, probably stood 5'4", and had everything that he owned on his back. And we went into Frankfurt, and he was very considerate, I would say, because he shared what little food he had with me and what we could get. Then we went upstairs, and we were sitting. In fact, he had found that there were some other prisoners of war upstairs. And I went up there. There were 2 B-24 crews, I think, and they had been in pretty bad shape in prison hospitals, and they were being moved. And during this time, a German soldier came over and discovered that there were prisoners of war sitting, and Fräuleins were standing in the station. And he started quite a hubbub. And Fritz, the German guard that I had me stand against the wall, and he stood in front of me with his rifle at high port. And at that time, a German SS major woke up, and he stood up and saw what was happening, and he quieted the disturbance immediately. And we were then moved to another section of the station. Outside of that, we had very little. The German civilians themselves were very belligerent, naturally, because they figured we were the ones who had done all the damage to their house.